Hey everyone, it's Harry from Hotspur TV back with a match reaction video. Tottenham Hotspur 3, Burnley 0. So yes, as we all know, Frank is finally at Spurs in his first game. So what do I think first of all about the starting lineup? So thankfully, and this is when we know we have a good manager and not that guy we had last year. Frank changed the system from PSG from a 5-3-2 or 3-5-2 to a 4-2-3-1 4/4-3-3, I'd say, more so. And he started with Ricardo in goal. And we had Porro on the right, Spence on the left, who I thought was brilliant again, Van de Ven and Romero. So Danso dropped to the bench. The midfield three was kind of actually pretty much a change in style and also in the system. So Bergvall, Sarr and Gray was the choice of Frank, and I thought it was quite interesting that Gray actually played in his favourable role for once. Well, he claims it's a favourable role, rather than being chucked, obviously in multiple positions like it was last year. And the front line is of Kudus, who moved on to the right-hand side. Richarlison retained his spot in the middle. And Brennan Johnson was brought in to play on the left wing. He did get his goal in the end. And this is probably his only contribution in the game, but let's just go for it. And Burnley with Scott Parker, and I hope they do stay up because of Scott Parker, because I think he was a great player for us in his 2-3 years he was here. But we took them to the cleaners, really. Richarlison scored within 12 minutes. Kudus and Richarlison, it's going to be quite a big thing, I think, this season. The link-up seems to just grow. It was a great cross. Richarlison did it with a nice cross shot sort of thing. I just think Kudus' variation of productivity and crosses is a massive plus already, and there's only been 2 games I've seen him play for us. His versatility as well. So he plays a second striker against PSG, and he also played as a right winger, which is I think is probably his best position against Burnley. And of course the second goal, after a period of 20-30 minutes where I think Burnley only created a couple of chances. It was a great cross, and Richarlison scored kind of a reminiscent goal of his Brazil goal a few years ago in the World Cup. Even though I'd argue this one was a bit better. And Johnson, as I mentioned before, got the third. But it was just great performances all around. Van der Ven only really had to make one sprint to save us. I thought Sarr was great again. He's probably been our best player in pre-season. Richarlison and Kudus, it was quite hard for me to pick them out of the matchup of those two. I think Richarlison is like a totally different player, whether it's to do with his fitness, because there's been talk of, them assessing certain players for injuries and trying mitigating them and minimizing them. So maybe they've done some work with him physically to try and prevent that. I remember that happened with a certain Gareth Bale a few years ago when Redknapp came in, that they started trying to fix the way these players get injured and how to improve that. But Kudus is just a special player, man. Productivity-wise is great. He can take players on. He occupied two or three players at the same time. And you can tell he's at a different level to most of the players we have. Johnson, I know he scored, and I do want to speak about this briefly. I don't know where he's going to really play under Frank. I was doing a lot of thoughts about this. Obviously, he played on the left. We have to need 100% Kudus on the right? But could he play in the middle? Could he play second striker? Because obviously when the 3-5-2 we put out against PSG, could we see Johnson play with Solanke or Johnson play with Richarlison there? Or is that a possibility? Is that where Johnson could fit in? I'm just speculating. Obviously, people know my thought about Johnson. I know he scored the winner in the final, even though I do think it hit Shaw's hand. But as a footballer, he's not that great. But to me, he's kind of like a really lesser version of Dele Alli, and I think Dele Alli had more quality, hence why I said lesser. But he can get goals. The thing with Johnson, can get goals, and maybe as a super sub, he might be really good for us because you can chuck him on, go 4-4-2, whatever, or play him alongside the striker if you don't want to completely go all out with playing two strikers. And he could maybe play as a shadow striker and get you a goal later on, or get in these areas where you just chuck everyone forward, and you just need to get that last goal. And Johnson might be that player. I mean, super sub is probably where it's heading, especially if Savino and Eze join, because I can't see him getting game after that, especially on the left-hand side, because Savino is predominantly a left winger. So a lot of pluses. The only small negatives I saw was I felt the midfield three he picked was a bit of a risk, and I felt, to me at least watching, was a bit disjointed. Playing Gray even though I would argue this is the only game, well, not the only game, but one of the few games I would be confident with him playing in a 6 role, at home to a promoted side or lesser sides. Maybe not away. Maybe we'll need a bit different, maybe a different combination. And Bergvall and Sarr was a massive risk play, all 3 of them. But part of me thinks he did play that because Paulinho and Bentancur probably put the legs and the donkey work in midweek against PSG. Maybe they were a bit tired, but also we do have Man City away next week. So it was a risk. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, there was a free 20-minute sort of spell where Burnley were on top and they had the ball, even though they didn't really create as many clear-cut chances. They created 2 or 3 maybe, and it might have cost us. But going forward, I personally prefer him to play, say, Gray with Bentancur, Paulinho, and then Sarr or Bergvall in front. I think that would get the best out of all of them. And I'm not saying, because I don't expect Gray to play away to Man City, I don't expect Gray to play away to Liverpool and all these bigger teams, because I think it's not going to help his development. But yeah, I guess for someone who's slated Gray for a long time, I thought he was all right. But it's still a long way to go for him to really make it, I think. But the key for me is to play him alongside more experienced players, and the risk paid off in the end because we won 3-0. But let's hope it carries on. But I just want to talk briefly about Frank before the end of the video. I noticed on the touchline, apart from his passion, which I've been missing that for so long, his passion on the touchline, something like that. But also I noticed a lot of different things with a midfield 3, because I think it's predominantly a 4-3-3. It may be in a 4-2-3-1, but the positions that we were taking up in a minute, I'll speak on in a minute. So I noticed that he always wanted one player sort of off Richarlison. So most predominantly was Bergvall. Some instances it was Sarr, just so Richarlison wasn't completely isolated when he got the ball, right? So those one midfield 3 would go there. And that would mean one of the other 2 would drop and then the other one would drop further back. Hence why I thought when the defence had the ball, I noticed Frank shouting and gesturing this empty space, because I noticed the defenders had the ball and there was no midfielder there for them to lay it off to and to progress the ball, basically, or even to get out and out. I don't know if out of the right word, but to get out of the press they were in from Burnley. And I noticed he was gesturing that a lot. Also, Frank checks his iPad or his monitor, I can't tell from where I'm sitting, a lot, which means he pays massive attention to detail to the opposition and about how the game's going, the transitions and stuff like that. So it's clear that it's like we're watching complete opposites. We'd have a manager on the touchline last season who was doing nothing, and we paid the price for it, hence the 22 Premier League losses. And then the manager now who's so attention to detail, whereby you can see the changes within the game and to see how he was reacting to the changes, and obviously his risk paid off in the end. But so it's a good start for Frank. This is only beginning, so if we see this level of improvement now, maybe in 2-3 years, I'll be even crazier, right? And we still need to maybe do some work in the window. Savino and Eze have to come in. Even though right now, because I'm recording this on a Sunday morning, Eze is actually playing for Palace. He's playing pretty well. But Savino, I think, is a lot closer just because his agents are in London. They flew from Brazil. City want to sell him, especially because they're going for Rodrigo. Thank God they're going for Rodrigo. It's not Arsenal that's going for Rodrigo. And in order for them to move for Rodrigo and also, unfortunately, Donnarumma, they need to sell players. So Savino is definitely on his way out. Even though they claim he's injured, he's not injured. He's been in the gym and he seemed pretty happy. So I think hopefully by the time I do another one of these videos, we at least have one of them in. I do think Eze personally will go down to deadline day. Partly because I think Palace want more money up front from what I understand. And also it's Tottenham and these 2 chairmen, they both want to win the deal basically. We don't want to pay as much money up front. I think that's the issue. And Palace haven't really acquired or identified a replacement that they can definitely get in. And that, I think, interlinks because obviously they need the more money up front so they can go and sign someone. I don't reckon they're actually linked with El Khanous, who was one linked with us a few weeks ago. But I think Savino will definitely get done. And if Savino gets done, then Johnson will find himself definitely on the bench. I don't see how we're going to start with Savino and Kudus and Johnson in the same team. I'll be very surprised. So yeah, next week's a Sterling test, City away. But yeah, I'll take a draw right now, but come on, you Spurs.